Now, as we mentioned at the top of the show, really, really sad day. This is going to be a tough segment for us, so bear with us. But we wanted to save it until people are listening. JP and I spoke yesterday and been texting, obviously, a lot and talking a lot these last 10 days or so. It's been tough, but he wanted me to announce, and he put it on his Twitter around midnight or so, that his mom, Lourdes, passed away yesterday. It's been a brutal couple weeks, and just bear with us. I wrote down some thoughts. He wanted me to say a few things. JP's mom was like a second mom to my family. I'll say that for sure. Cake's probably similar thoughts. Cake's lived down the street. I lived across the street.
Yep.
I've known Mrs. Flame, Lourdes, for 47 years. She was a great mom to JP and his younger brother, Eric. One of the things I always think about is when you think about Mrs. Flame, she loved to laugh. She loved to entertain. Seemed like she always had family and friends over for parties. Really a great entertainer. I know we're my family, we were always kind of overwhelmed. My house was kind of like the zoo in the neighborhood. But Mrs. Flame and her husband Paul, they loved to entertain. And Cakes would be there. My family would be there, and they often had their own families there, and we were always invited. And Cakes, you've heard us talk about it through the years that, when Mrs. Flame, just simple little appetizers, but whenever those bugles would come around with the French onion dip, we would destroy them.
And, one of the cool things, too, was it wasn't just for, like, formal entertaining, and I think this is the thing at all of our houses, like, I could just walk in the front door of the Flames house and, you always felt welcome. Like, I felt the same at your house, you guys felt the same at mine. Like, it was that atmosphere, that welcoming atmosphere that, that she and Mr. Flame put forth, like you could just walk through the front door, not knock, and not have to worry about it.
You're part of the family.
You're always welcomed in, yeah.
And that's why people, always wonder, well, how can we still be doing this 25 years later and all this? Because we came into this business family, and we're going to leave this business family. And it doesn't matter what kind of fights we get in. It doesn't matter if I tackle JP or he yells at me or we argue over politics. At the end of the day, we're all family. So this is a really tough time. As JP, as Cakes mentioned, their house was like my house growing up. Exactly like Cakes suggested. I'd go over there, I'd walk in the kitchen, I'd eat her brownies, and she'd even leave a couple without nuts because I didn't really like nuts. She'd make a couple without nuts just so I could eat them.
Right.
I'd go in their cabinets like it was my house. Right. I'd open their cabinets and I'd eat their cookies. I would just eat them whenever I wanted. And, my mom wouldn't really feed us that many sweets, so I just go over to JP's and eat all his cookies. She always had cherry pie in the fridge for his dad, and I'd eat that too. I remember, there's so many memories at JP's house growing up. I remember breaking a vase in the family room, kicking a soccer ball around. I was talking to my brother Matt yesterday about it, and he broke several windows of the Flames.
Your brother's a menace.
He set up, at one point he reminded me, he set up a 9-hole golf course in my front yard and JP's front yard. And it was just various trees.
Right.
Well, of course he broke a window. He also, there was a time there where he said they were throwing darts in the backyard and a dart landed on the roof and Mr. Flame was livid. And I still remember JP would sometimes run away from his dad because dad would chase him with a boot and just kick him in the pants because the Flames they pushed their kids. They were entertainers. They were accomplished people. JP's father came from Italy, uneducated, ended up at Hopkins, right? And JP's mom, proud mother from Puerto Rico. She worked for many years for the Census Bureau. JP's dad worked for the Bureau of Labor Statistics. A lot of times you'd get out the USA Today, and you'd see JP's dad quoted in it. But JP's mom, she loved to buy gifts for people. This is not an exaggeration. Every Christmas, she'd buy something like 150 gifts for friends and family. Every Christmas. She still to this day would give gifts to my siblings, to us. If we had a kid, all of a sudden my little ones would have gifts from Mrs. Flame. She never forgot people around the holidays. She was a great gift giver. She wanted people to smile. She loved to entertain. She, as JP's mentioned many, many times about Puerto Rico, she was very proud of Puerto Rico. She still kept an apartment there that JP and his family would visit often. We were welcome there. My family has been there a few times. Cakes has been there. Mm-hmm. Both of Lourdes' brothers are doctors. Her father was a doctor. She, in a lot of ways, was a doctor too, because she took great care of her mother, who had many, many health problems through the years. I think her mother was battling cancer off and on. Got to be 20 years. And Mrs. Flame was constantly with her. Towards the end, she practically lived in Puerto Rico with her. And I always remember, and JP's dad had a lot of health problems too, just like neurological things. It made it difficult for him to get around. And one of the, probably 20 years of my life, I just remember, maybe more, Mrs. Flame like wheeling his dad around or wheeling her mother around. And sort of one of the great ironies is that once her mom passed, she came back to the States, and as she had been taking care of everybody else, she didn't realize her health was failing. You would have no idea. And they went and they found, I think, some infection in her eye, and which had basically, without even knowing, causing her kidneys to shut down. So JP's mom had been on dialysis for almost 7 years, and it took its toll. And these last few weeks have really been brutal. But JP was a great son to his mom. He visited her religiously. He'd talk about it on the show. He'd go to Bowie to visit his mom. He'd go have lunch. And frankly, he'd always go over and see my mom across the street too, which made me look bad every time. But that's just the kind of guy JP is. Both he and his brother Eric, very loyal. And they loved his mom like any kids would. So just want to say, and it's really hard for us, but love your brother, loved your mom, love your dad, obviously, and we're all thinking about you. And, please, if you're of that mindset, keep JP and his family in your prayers, because he's lost both parents now. And, I don't think, that's not easy. So we're thinking about your brother. We've all lost parents. It's part of living, but it's not easy. So keep JP in your thoughts and prayers, and I don't know if anything you guys.
Those are good
wanna
thoughts. Obviously,
Yeah.
Those are hard. Those are hard to say. You could talk about her for hours. I didn't know her as well as you guys. Obviously, I didn't grow up in the neighborhood.
You didn't grow up across the street. Yeah.
Met her many times.
Right.
Mostly, back when we first started doing the show. I can't remember the last time I saw Mrs. Flame, but you're right. Great woman. Would do anything for you. JP was very lucky that he had her. And when he told me that she was going through what she was going through, obviously, what do I think about? I think about my mom. And my mother died in August of 19 and from breast cancer. And, the one thing that I'm always blessed by is the fact that I was able to spend every day with my mom in the last month of her life. And I'm not sure JP was able to do that for various reasons, but that's hard. But losing your mom sucks. It does. It sucks.
It's terrible.
Big time.
Yeah, it's super sad, especially for me too, because I haven't known her as long as EB has, but I've known Mrs. Flame for 45 years. Our families did things together. Events, as EB mentioned. The Flames were always, it seemed like they were always entertaining, having big parties, big get-togethers, and it wasn't just their inner works of their family that were invited. It was their family, it was friends, it was neighbors. That was the vibe that they put out, and the kind of neighbor that they wanted to be. They wanted to include you in their celebrations, their get-togethers.
Yeah, think about it. How many people have their families over, and they're very family-oriented, right? Extended family. Would invite the neighbors over, too.
Right.
I mean,
I barely know my
to all that stuff.
I've lived at my house for, 18 years? I know like one of my neighbors. I'm a terrible neighbor. I'm like the anti-Mrs. Flame and Mr. Flame. I should be more, I should aspire to be more like them. And I also want to mention that Mrs. Flame and my mom had a pretty close relationship.
Yeah.
Now, it was a long-distance relationship, but I know that, Mrs. Flame made an effort to talk to my mom, who's kind of, let's be honest, she's kind of isolated down in Alabama. She lives with her husband, but there's no real family down there, and that's one of her real connections back to this area was her relationship with Mrs. Flame. They would talk on the phone a good amount, and I know my mom is going to miss, being able to reach out and talk to her friend, Mrs. Flame. So that's a big loss for her.
I talked to my mom probably half dozen times yesterday because my mom's having a hard time with it because, as my mom said, JP lost his mom. My mom lost her best friend.
Yeah.
That was her best friend. So it's hard. She keeps looking out the window, to see her. So, I'm sure they'll put the house up for sale,
Right.
and, life goes on. But, it's a really tough time. And, a couple people said some nice things on Twitter the last few days about kind of growing up with us.
You mean there's some nice people on Twitter?
There are one or two.
You have to dig around to find it, but
there are one
maybe
or
you can find it.
And so that's why we share with you, because we feel like you guys are part of our lives too. So, it's really hard time.
I got to tell you, the one thing, and he'll go through this, and I still think about this with my mom. My mom's been gone almost 2 years. Every day I think about her, and I still can't believe she's gone. It's just one of those things where I really can't comprehend it. Yeah. And, I got pictures everywhere in the house of her and me and her, and I just can't believe it. It's hard to kind of come to grips with.
Yeah, and JP sent me pictures, I asked him for a few pictures, and he was sending me like around midnight. And, he sent me even one picture of my parents over at their house, and it looks like yesterday. It looks like it's just yesterday. My dad's been gone 15 years. So, that picture's got to be at least 17, 18 years old. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, it's a hard time. But, JP and Eric, they were great sons to their parents. And JP was particularly a very loyal son. So, it's really hard for him right now. So, just keep him in your thoughts.